Hello and welcome to another Pauper video. I'm kalikaiz and today I'm showing off Cycle Storm. This video is going to be covering one of the sweeter combo decks in the format of Cycle Storm. Your Storm card is Reaping the Graves, your mana production is Songs of the Damned, and your win condition is Draenus Stinger. Whenever you cycle another card, Draenus Stinger deals a damage to each opponent. So you got 22 cyclers in the deck. We're going to just cycle through our cards, kind of like playing eggs, and we're going to build up a storm count. We're going to Songs of the Damned for a very, very, very large amount of mana, and then we're going to Reaping the Graves our stuff back, and turning the Reaping the Graves kind of into a wheel, because we just put all the cards back into our hand and cycle them some more. So we just keep going off. This is a deck that has been played for a long time. I've been working on this list and testing a lot, as you can see over here. Cycle, 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 cycle. I'm trying a lot of different things. And one of the things that I'm trying here is Rowan's Grim Search. So this is Bargain, which is sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token. If it was bargained, you can look at the top 4 cards of your library, put up to 2 of them back on top of your library in any order, and then you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. So it's basically Surveil 4, draw 2, lose 2, kind of like a Night's Whisper. This is something that I've been playing a lot in Ultratron, and then I also tried it in my other Weather the Storm combo deck. And Brian Cook was saying that he thinks that this is good for Cycle Storm, and he ended up trophying with a very similar list, playing the 2 Grim Searches, so obviously I gotta try it out as well. The other new card for the deck is Siege Smash. It has Split Second, which if you're not familiar with, it says that players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities as long as this spell is on the stack. So if your opponent is using Relic of Progenitus or Nile Spellbomb to try to stop your combo, you just smash it and they can't crack it. It just goes away. So the other things that I've changed here is I'm going to 11 lands, and I decided to play 4 of Barrenmoor, 4 Great Furnace, and 3 Vault of Whispers. I think that we want to maximize our black mana, but we really need to have non-artifact mana, and Barrenmoor is just so much better than basics that it's worth playing 4 of this. As Bryant says, it removes your stops in the deck. So I actually trimmed from 12 to 11 lands so that I could play this Ardent Elementalist, which is pretty much the only difference in the main deck from Cook's list. So props to him for just developing a very, very solid list. We've got 4 Dark Ritual, 3 Cabal Ritual for our mana generation, outside of the Songs of the Damned, and 4 Lotus Petal. And then the sideboard is 4 Pyroblast, 4 Siege Smash, 2 Fairy Macabre for Graveyard Combo, 2 Gilded Light, which is supposed to be for Thraben Charm or Nile's Spellbomb, but probably just a Thraben Charm deck. And then another Dahada's Ploy to bring in against decks where life gain is going to matter. Flaring Pain for Strands, and my own personal touch, which is probably not going to come up, but Feldon's Cane. And Feldon's Cane says, exile it, shuffle your graveyard into your library. So the thought here is that this is a way of continuing to loop in the face of something like Weather the Storm, or just like infinite weather and interaction out of something like Gardens. I just have been having a bad time playing against Gardens, so I just wanted to bring this in. If you want to get this deck, check out cardmarket.com, the largest seller of Magic the Gathering cards in Europe and a sponsor of this video. If you want sideboard guides for Familiars, Ultratron, Poison Storm, check out the Patreon, which is patreon.com/kalikaiz. Really would appreciate if you like and subscribe and leave me a comment and let me know what you thought about the deck and the video. Today's video is going to be covering a league that already happened, so we're going to go through replays, trying to do a very in-depth analysis and show you what worked, what didn't work, when I might have punted. Hopefully you enjoy, and we'll see you in the matches. All right, we're here in match 1. We're on the play versus Gary86. So we're going to take the play. So this hand, what I decided here was that we have Petal, Ritual, we have Songs of the Damned already, and I can cycle 3 cards immediately. So if I find any land, I'm pretty much set to go off on turn 2 or turn 1. So I decided to keep for science. So let's see how that works out for me. We're going to go Lotus Petal, crack the Petal for black, Dark Ritual, and we're going to cycle Horror. We find a Street Wraith, so we can cycle the Street Wraith looking for a land, find a Songs of the Damned. We will cycle the Draenus Stinger. We find a Reaping the Graves. So we could go Psycho mode and play songs into Monstrous Carabid, but I decided, okay, I'm just going to chill. It's turn 1. I'm on the play. Let's cycle the Carabid and look for a land. Cycle. We find a Dark Ritual and no land. Our opponent leads on Dross Forge Bridge and passes. So we have nothing to do here. Find a Deadly Dispute. So we pass the turn. So here I'm like, all right, it's bridge. Now they play a mountain. So mountain here indicates that this is probably red-black burn or the Goblin combo deck. They suspend or plot a highway robbery, which if you haven't seen, you can plot it and then it says discard a card or sacrifice a land, draw 2 cards, which works pretty well in the Madness Burn deck. So we find a Lotus Petal. I decide to pass. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 creatures in the graveyard, and generally I want to stick to having 5 creatures in the graveyard as the go turn. And our opponent's not killing us. They play Vault of Whispers, Highway Robbery. They discard a Kitchen Imp, and now they can Madness it. So they put the Kitchen Imp on the stack. They're going to tap for 2 mana, Vampire's Kiss, and attack for 2, and that's their turn. So we're now at 14. I find a healer. So now we'll have 5 creatures in the graveyard if I go Petal Ritual. So it looks like we have a plan now, so we're going to try to go for it. It's turn 4. I have 0 lands, have not drawn a single land so far. We Dark Ritual, cycle the healer. I find a Songs of the Damned. So now I'm kind of like, well, I have to go for it. We're going to Songs. And then to build Storm Count, we can Songs right now or cast the Grim Search. We're going to Grim Search, drawing 2 cards. Did not find a land. We can cycle the Horror or cast the Cabal Ritual first. We're going to cast the Cabal Ritual since we had Threshold. Now we have 6 mana. Cycle the Horror. Find a Vantasaur, which we can cycle. Finding a Ploy. So we don't have blue mana yet. We have 4 mana right now. And we have 1 Street Wraith in the graveyard, so it looks like we're going to have to go Songs into Reaping. Now we have 10 mana. We're going to Reap in the Graves. Okay, we're targeting all of our creatures. And we want to target the Street Wraith first. Alright, so Street Wraith is the first target, then the rest of the creatures doesn't really matter. But we want to leave these Reaping the Graves on the stack so we can continue to cycle through cards and get as much out of this Songs of the Damned as possible. We're also looking for lands and blue mana. So Street Wraith comes back, gets cycled, we go to 10, we find a Dark Ritual, we go to 9 mana. Horror gets cycled, finding another Reaping, so I think we're pretty clearly going to win this turn. We just have to find red mana. We cycle a Stinger, finding a Carabid, cycle that, finding a Dark Ritual, which gives us more mana. We cycle a Carabid, that came back from the graveyard. Find a Healer, which we can cycle. You can see that we're building Songs of the Damned mana here. Find a Street Wraith, we cycle, we go to 8. I cycle the Barrenmoor here because I want to keep digging for creatures. We find our first land. That's 27 cards, or 33 cards left in the deck, we find our first land. We pick up a Healer from the graveyard, and we're going to cycle that. Another Healer, cycle. We have 11 in the graveyard. We can cycle the Street Wraith going to 6, finding a Stinger. Songs of the Damned getting really huge now. Find a Horror, or pick up the Horror, cycle it, find another Horror. We only have 1 mana left. So we can probably just going to Songs here. Songs for 13. And now we pick up our other card. Now the choice is to play the Great Furnace or the Vault of Whispers. If we play the Great Furnace, we'll have an additional red mana. I decided to play the Vault. I don't think that was the correct thing to do. We should have probably played the Great Furnace for the extra red mana. But now we can tap the Vault of Whispers and then Deadly Dispute it. So this will generate a treasure token, giving us more mana, and we can Dihada's Ploy if we want to. I decided to just go for the cycling. We're looking for another Songs of the Damned or an Ardent Elementalist at this point to get us more mana. We find the Elementalist. So now I can Elementalist, getting back the Songs. Let's cast that. Elementalist enters the battlefield. Okay, and we get to use the trigger. Target the Songs. And we don't have to cast it right now. We should cycle the Barrenmoor, see if we draw more creatures. We end up finding a Deadly Dispute, which is perfect. And part of the original, the best synergy of this deck is that Deadly Dispute can sacrifice the Ardent Elementalist to get it back and generate more colored mana. We can Deadly Dispute the Elementalist. One thing we have to notice is that we don't have that much colored mana in general. So We probably are only going to be able to deadly dispute our treasure tokens and kind of cycle those. We could Dihada's Ploy here. We decide to cycle the Draenus Stinger, finding a deadly dispute. I play Songs of the Damned. Now I have 18 colorless, or 18 black mana. And then I'm going to cast Reaping the Graves. So this is going to get back all my creatures. We have Storm 15 and Songs made 17. So there's 17 creatures in the graveyard, meaning we're not going to get back all of them. I target the Elementalist first so that I can get that back to get back Songs again. And then we're going to put the Street Wraiths on back. And I decide to just pick up everything here and play out a Stinger. Because I feel like I can kill them at this point. Or Elementalist, okay. To get back what? To get back Songs. Okay, this makes sense. So I get back the Songs. I was thinking in my head, now I have the Deadly Dispute here, which can Deadly Dispute the Elementalist to get that red mana back. We dispute the Elementalist. We play our Stinger. And now we have enough mana and creatures to just cycle them to death. So we're just cycling away. Or we do have to be careful about not going to 0 life with the Street Wraiths. We cycle Vantasaur, finding more mana over here. And we have 2 Songs of the Damned in hand. So plenty of mana, definitely can win this turn. Play Cabal Ritual, cycle. There's another Reaping the Graves. So we only needed 1 Stinger in play, our opponent's tapped out, and we can just Reaping again to kill them. So our single Stinger is going to get the job done. We cycle a Vantasaur, or a Monstrous Carabid. If I find another black mana, or red mana, then I cycle a Carabid again. If I find another red mana, I can play the second Stinger, and we've played 2 Lotus Petals. So that means that there's 2 Lotus Petals still left in the deck. We only have 1 mana here, so we have to cast a Songs. I'm just going to cycle the Street Wraith first. Cycle another Street Wraith. We're now at 2 life. Cast a Songs of the Damned. Cycle in a Vantasaur. I find the other Lotus Petal, play it. And then I'm going to go ahead and cast the Dihada's Ploy from hand. We're at 2, so Ploy is awesome here because it can help us, we gain a ton of life. We're going to draw 2 cards and then discard. Also noticed that I was only at 3 in the deck at that time, so that was my last chance to actually play it. We discard, and now we're at 38, which shows the power of Dihada's Ploy. And we have another Lotus Petal. I knew that I had that left in the deck. I can just cycle. Now I'm at 0 in library, so I can maximize my total mana. So we'll cast our Rituals and our Stingers and win the game. Cycle. Okay, I decided to be fancy. So I'm at 0. And I turned off all my auto yields. And then what we're going to do is cycle, put this cycle trigger on the stack. So, and we're going to respond to this and not let it resolve so that we don't deck out. I wanted to maximize the Songs of the Damned here, but our opponent's at 6, so this is completely unnecessary and very fancy. We cycle again, they go to 4. Cycle. We Cabal Ritual. Songs of the Damned. And we have only... Yeah, we have this and this left in hand. I could have probably just won if I played out the Stinger and then did the same thing. But, you know, you live and learn. We can play Reaping the Graves now, and then get everything back. And our opponent is going to concede. Alright, all my creatures are going to come back. So, important here is that you need to let all of the Reaping the Graves resolve before you actually start cycling again, because... Usually in the beginning, you want to respond to the Reaping, but obviously we have no more cards that we can draw. So if we put the cycle trigger on the stack before we actually accomplish anything, we are going to die. And opponent concedes with the Reaping the Graves on the stack, I believe. Yep, okay, they conceded with some left on the stack, noticing that we weren't going to deck ourselves, and we win game 1. Okay, here in game 2, we're going to be taking out 2 Carabids and 1 Cabal Ritual, or 3 Siege Smashes. Alright, we're on the draw here. Opponent keeps 7. We have a hand with Barrenmoor, 2 Cyclers, and Reaping. It seems pretty fine. So I like the Barrenmoor because it's possible that our opponent will have a Gorilla Shaman. Find a Street Wraith off the top. So we could cycle the Street Wraith first to look for another land, but it's not necessary at this moment. We're just going to play the Barrenmoor and pass. Our opponent's turn. They lead on a Faithless Looting, apparently looking for lands. They don't find lands and scoop. So our sideboarding didn't matter. We just win, and GG. Round 2 versus Ruben's Nito. And they have been playing all sorts of different combo stuff, so I don't know what they're up to. We have a hand without land, so I'm definitely going to mulligan that one. We mulligan into a hand with some pretty good stuff, but only one stinger, one healer, so one cycler, and I'm going to keep this though. Our opponent keeps 7. Probably going to, yeah, we put back the Cabal Ritual. We'll lead on the Baron Moor and pass the turn. Our opponent plays a Swamp. And that is it. So I don't have any idea what they're up to. Swamp Pass sort of indicates Golgari Gardens to me, so I'm just going to take my time. Play the Vault of Whispers. Now it's the opponent's turn. They play another Swamp and don't do anything. So end step will cycle. Cycle the Carabid. This allows me to respond, like, I have the Reaping in hand, so I'm just trying to not cycle in case they have a Bojuka Bog. Finding another land is great, so I can just play the land and pass the turn. Opponent's turn, they untap. They got another Swamp. Still doing nothing, which is disconcerting. I don't have any idea what they're up to. But we're going to cycle on end step. Cycle the Stinger. Finding a Dark Ritual is fine. Cycle the Street Wraith. That's 4 in the graveyard. Cycling the Vantasaur here, using all of our mana available. Finding another Vault of Whispers. I'll just play my land and pass. If it is Golgari Gardens, we don't have to really do anything. We're just hanging out as long as possible until they tap low, and then we can win the game. They play a Lembas, so it really does look like Gardens at this point. Still have no confirmation. They end up scrying bottom. Plays a Witch's Cottage. So we have Deadly Dispute in hand. I'm just going to play the Vault of Whispers. I find a Street Wraith. I think I can just pass here. Our opponent is going to Fanatical Offering the Lembas on end step. And then untap. They play Haunted Mire. They Deadly Dispute their map token. They play a Basking Brood-Scale. So I did not expect this whatsoever, but Basking Brood-Scale is part of a combo with Sadistic Glee. If you have Sadistic Glee on it and you sacrifice a creature, you make infinite power on this and infinite mana. So we'll see that in a second here. They play Sadistic Glee. Whenever a creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on an enchanted creature. And this says whenever a +1/+1 counter gets put on it, you make a Scion, and you can or a Eldrazi Spawn, and you can sacrifice it to add mana, which kills it, and then puts a counter on it, so you go infinite that way. So now I know they're tapped out. I have to try to win. We're going to cycle the Street Wraith, and then I'm just going to Deadly Dispute a land to get as deep into the deck as possible. Finding Songs of the Damned is sick, and we can easily just go off on our turn. Finding a Stinger off the top. So just going to tap all my mana. Dark Ritual, Petal. We have 6 creatures in the graveyard. Cycle the Stinger, cycle the Horror, finding a Reap in the Graves. So we cast Songs of the Damned, cast Reap in the Graves. So the options are to just cycle everything right away, looking for mana, or to try to play out the 2 Stingers and kill them and find mana later. Get back the Street Wraith, and then some other creatures. We have 10 mana right now. I decide to pick everything up and then play out the Stinger and another Stinger. So now I can draw 4 cards for 2 mana, and then I can Reaping and draw another 2 cards. So hopefully I'll draw into mana. And we need to only cycle 10 times to kill them. Cycle a Street Wraith twice, that puts them to 16. Finding a Ploy, cycle a Horror. Finding a Dark Ritual is great. Our opponent concedes, and we win the game. So post board here, I am taking out Carabid, and bringing in 2 Siege Smashes. Just kind of being light on it. I don't know if they're on just a bunch of like Mesmeric Fiends or whatnot. So our opponent goes first. We open a hand with a ton of cyclers, so it seems like a decent keep. They go Colony Gardens. I'm just going to play land and pass the turn. Opponent's turn. Plays a Nile Spellbomb. And with that right away, now I feel like I have to bring in more Siege Smashes. Plays Golgari Rot Farm, picking up their land, and I cycle. They pass the turn. Didn't find a land. So now I have to try to cycle into a Siege Smash really quickly. Cycle a Street Wraith. Find the Siege Smash. So here, if our opponent could just like kill all this, I'm just going to take it slow. Hopefully they don't realize that I have the Siege Smash, and then I can just like get them on the next turn. Unfortunately, they are about to disrupt that. They play a Duress, taking the Siege Smash. Pretty bad for me. Plays an Ichor Wellspring. Draws a card and gets in for 0. So my turn. Now I have to just keep digging. So I decide to Lotus Petal and Grim Search a Lotus Petal, looking for another Siege Smash. So we Grim Search the Petal, finding Cabal Ritual, Dark Ritual, Vantasaur. Decide to take nothing. Putting everything in the graveyard, just looking for that smash. Play the land and pass the turn. Our opponent's turn. They play a Mesmeric Fiend, so they're really like disrupting me a lot here. Colony Garden, no attacks. Just gonna cycle and see what I can do. Finding a Draenus Stinger. I'm gonna cycle looking for a Seed Smash and a red mana. Cycle again, I find a Cabal Ritual. Decide to just cast the Cabal Ritual, see if they'll do anything. And they do respond with the Spell Bomb. So we're just gonna go ahead and concede. So here, post board, we're actually going to be bringing in 2 more Siege Smashes. So we've cut from the deck, from the main deck, we cut Cabal Ritual, Ploy, Carabid. Apparently I went up to 61 cards post board. Whoops. That was not intended. Here I am just counting that out. All right. So 61 cards. Whoops. So we have a Baron Moor, which is great, and the Great Furnace, which can cast the Siege Smash. We have 1 Cycler. We have Songs and Reaping. I think I'm fine with keeping this. So we're just going to play the Baron Moor and pass. Our opponent mulligans to 5. So obviously that's good for us. They play a land. All right, turn 2, we'll play out the land and pass the turn. Opponent plays a second land. They are tapping for 2, plays a Lembas. And we're going to cycle Healer, finding a Vantasaur, cycle the Vantasaur. They play a Lembas and they scry top. So now I have Vault of Whispers and Great Furnace. I'm out of Cyclers, which is not great. Just pass the turn. I'm keeping my Petals in hand for Storm Count for later. Opponent is going to cast a Mesmeric Fiend, which we don't really have a response to. Unfortunately, Siege Smash can't kill that. They take the Songs of the Damned. They play a Swamp and pass the turn. Find a Stinger. I think, all right, we're going to cycle. Finding another Siege Smash. I decide to play a Lotus Petal in case they storm off and try to exile the graveyard, and I can respond by just casting a Reaping the Graves to get everything back. Little value Reaping. They're going to do something here. End step Rotten Reunion on the Stinger. And since Storm is currently 2, I can just blast this Reaping the Graves to get everything back. I'll go back to 7 cards in hand. So we cast the Reaping, get everything back. Rotten Reunion fizzles, and their turn. Now they're going to Deadly Dispute the Lembas. Lembas goes back into the deck. They play a Rot Farm, 5 cards in hand, and they're going to attack for 1. We go to 19. So it's my turn. I'm floating 2 mana. I'm just going to play a Stinger out. I feel like they have a lot of interaction. I mean, for my graveyard, but not for my actual deck. So we're going to start just cycling and paying them a little bit and see if I can just value kill them without ever having to deal with the graveyard. I find Street Wraith Reaping and Songs. So these are the combo pieces. They do have the Rotten Reunion in the graveyard. Cycle the Street Wraith, putting them to 18. 7 cards in hand. Right now they're holding up the Rotten Reunion. They Deadly Dispute off their Treasure Token, play a land. They Deadly Dispute the Treasure Token again. Plays a Nile Spellbomb. They're passing the turn. So I have a 4th land here. I have 2 creatures. This is 3/4. We could just kill this Spellbomb with a Siege Smash and then try to win. Let's see what we do. I think I'm taking the more conservative line here of just playing. All right, we go Siege Smash. Now, they can't respond to the Siege Smash, but they can draw a card off the Spellbomb. They cycle, or they draw a card. So we're going to go for Cycle a Healer. 3 cards in the graveyard. Cycle a Horror. I have only Songs of the Damned for 4 mana right now. I'm going to attack for 2. Put you to 14. They don't respond. I go Lotus Petal, Crack for Black, play Songs of the Damned. I'm going to Deadly Dispute. See if I can find more mana, but we whiff. We're going to crack and then Reaping everything back. Then I'll cycle the Street Wraith in case I somehow find black mana, but obviously I didn't, and everything comes back. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 we can cycle, put them to 7. We can just discard the Siege Smash at this point. The other thing to consider is that if you put the Horror of the Broken Lands in play, Siege Smash has the alternative mode of giving a creature +3/+2 and trample, which could allow you to force through to win the game. Opponent Bajuka bogs us, so it looks like that was a good play on my turn to get everything back and just chillin'. They play Evolution Witness, so now they can adapt the Witness, getting back the Spellbomb turn after turn, plus they're holding open the Rotten Reunion. They play Sadistic Glee and Candy Trail. So Sadistic Glee means anytime a creature dies, Evolution Witness can get more stuff back. So we've got 1, 2, 3 mana, 4, 5. So let's see what happens. I decide that we're going to play out another Stinger. So now anything that I cycle is 2 damage. So I'm thinking here, they'd have to double block. Well, they'd have to kill their Evolution Witness to kill this. Or if they... in my mind, I thought they would have to double block for some reason. But this deals 2 damage without having to cycle. We put them to 11. We Dark Ritual. Cycle the Horror. Put them to 9. Cycle again. We find a Street Wraith. So we cycle again. If I find like a Dark Ritual, they're pretty dead. Find a Vault of Whispers. Cycle the Healer. Find a Barrenmoor. So we have... I'm just going to cycle right now, because if I find Street Wraith, they die. We did not find it, but we have 2 more cyclers on my turn. And we're not worried about their Nile Spellbombs and stuff. They crack the Candy Trail going to 4 life. Play a land. There's a Nile Spellbomb. Cracks the Spellbomb right away to draw a card. Then they can adapt the Evolution Witness to get back Candy Trail or something. Or the Nile Spellbomb again. They decide to adapt it to get back the Candy Trail to set up their draw, as well as gain them some life. But unfortunately for them, we have 2 cyclers in there at 4. Now we just cycle, and they're going to be dead. Cycle the Horror, and we cycle the Barrenmoor, or the Draenith Healer. Okay, fair enough. Our opponent goes to 0, and that's 2-0. We're here in round 3 versus Crile Peyote, and they are an Italian player who is very good. We lose the die roll. But this hand has double cycler. We're missing black mana, but we have it off the Lotus Petal, so I'm just going to keep it and see what happens. We do have the Songs of the Damned. Our opponent says, sorry for the deck, I'm testing it for Geddon. Plays a Forest, so we know they're on land destruction. Plays Arbor Elf, and that's their turn. So I'm going to go ahead and play the Great Furnace and pass the turn. We give them the boo. Recycle the Stinger. There's no reason to like wait at this point. They probably aren't playing Relic in the main deck. They play a Wild Growth, and then they just attack for 1. So that's really good for me. I get to keep my land around. I play a Vault of Whispers. Now we're going to start cycling away. Cycle the Healer. Now we can leave open the Dark Ritual Deadly Dispute, so we can Deadly Dispute whatever land they go after, and also cycle the Vantasaur. Could have just... And we had drawn the Deadly Dispute off the Healer, otherwise I wouldn't have cycled that already. Looks like they're going to tap on tap and cast an Avenging Hunter. So that gets them the initiative. We cycle a Vantasaur. They pass the turn. My turn. This is turn 3. We don't necessarily have to try to win here, but we could. Looks like I'm passing. I think that's the safe play. They are going to go into Forge, make their Hunter way big, and attack for 8 damage here. They have 4, plays a Writhing Chrysalis, our new card from Modern Horizons 3. It's a 2/3 with Devoid and Reach. Whenever you sacrifice another Eldrazi, put a +1/+1 counter on it. They stack pretty hard. And it basically is a red-green 4/5 with Reach. So very strong. All right, now they're going to go ahead and attack for 8. Let's see. They attack for 8. We're going to go to 11. I'm going to Deadly Dispute my land and then cycle on end step. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 creatures in the graveyard, and we are very well set to go off this turn. We can just start casting Dark Ritual. Now I have Threshold, so Cabal Ritual will add 5 mana, plus 3 mana off the Cabal Ritual, basically, and start cycling away. Cycle the Healer, cycle a Healer, cycle a Stinger. We find another Dark Ritual. Just any more mana and storm count is good. And now we can play the 2 dark rituals. Storm is 4. We have 8 creature cards in the graveyard, so we do need more storm. And we can play Lotus Petal and then Deadly Dispute one of our lands to draw 2 more cards and add more storm count, plus turning that land into a treasure token for red mana. Might as well cycle. I decided to cycle the Barrenmoor here. Sometimes I wouldn't, but we have a lot of mana already and I'm looking for more creatures. I'm going to cycle the Stinger, finding a Lotus Petal, so now we have 9 creatures in the graveyard. We play the Lotus Petal. Now Songs Reaping will be exactly the right storm count to get everything back. Songs, I decided to go double Songs. Because I have 2 Stingers in the graveyard, actually 3 Stingers, I can just get everything back and then murder them. All right, so we Reaping, get everything back. Oh, not everything, just multiple Stingers. Yeah, everything back. We'll go ahead and cast the Stingers. Make 3 red mana, Stinger, Stinger again, Stinger again. Now we're blasting. Cycle, that's 3 damage. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we only need to draw 1 more cycler at any point, and that will be lethal. And they scoop. All right, post board here, we're going to cut a Grim Search, a Ploy, a Carabid for 3 Siege Smashes. I think that Ploy is not really that necessary for life gain. We can work our way around it. And we're just going to try to go fast and do our thing. Luckily, we drew multiple lands and cyclers. And I like the fact that we have the Barrenmoors here because I expect them to bring in some sort of artifact hate for the other lands. We're keeping. Our opponent mulligans to 5. They play a Forest and a Utopia Sprawl on red. I'm going to play my Barrenmoor and pass the turn. Our opponent's turn. They play a Wild Growth, pass the turn. I'll play a land and pass the turn. Trying to protect my Vault of Whispers here. Our opponent's passing, which is awesome. We cycle the Horror. And we find a red land, so I think we can afford to just leave that in our hand and maybe use that red mana later. They're going to end step a Deglammer here. So we'll just use that mana to cycle a creature. We could have also just like cycled it later and then after it had been Deglammered to maybe redraw the land. Opponent plays a Forest. They have 4 mana, they Acid Moss. We're just going to cycle. Finding a Deadly Dispute's okay. Unfortunately, like, we couldn't have Deadly Disputed that land. Cycle another Healer. Finding another Deadly Dispute. So they're going to get their dual land and pass the turn. It's my turn. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 in the graveyard. And just play our land out. And a Lotus Petal. I'm thinking I will end step Deadly Dispute the Lotus Petal if they don't do anything. So I've got Songs. I'm looking for a Reaping at this point. They have 4 mana. They Acid Moss my black land. So we're going to tap it for black mana and see if they do anything else. They don't, so we're going to Deadly Dispute the Lotus Petal. We draw into double Cycler. So we cycle the Street Wraith, finding Songs of the Damned. So all we need now is a Reap in the Graves. We're going to try to go for it. We'll go red-black, cast Cabal Ritual, and we can we can get black mana back by Deadly Disputing this Great Furnace. Cycle. Let's see. Cycle again. We find a Siege Smash, not very useful at the moment. Cycle again. We find a Horror. So we probably want a Cabal Ritual here. Okay. That way we don't have to use the Songs just yet. Well, I'm going to cycle. Cycle again. I'm digging hard. I'm at 36 cards left in the deck. Cycle the Street Wraith. We find a Lotus Petal. And a Cabal Ritual. Deadly Dispute on what? Deadly Dispute the Lotus Petal. If I wanted to be more all in, I could have Deadly Disputed the Great Furnace. That was 1, 2. We still have more Deadly Disputes left in the deck to draw into later to get mana back off of the Great Furnace. We have 2 Songs in hand, Reaping, Petal. We're just going to try to kill them here again. Play the Petal, play Songs again, Reaping. We're going to get everything back. We have tons and tons of mana. We're going to go ahead and play the Stinger out. We had more mana than ability to get creatures back, so now we're just going to start cycling and trying to kill them. Cycle. We could actually Grim Search the Great Furnace here, and that could maybe find us another Stinger, but we're just casting our spells, cycling some Carabids, another Lotus Petal, so that's more black mana. I'm just going to use the mana to cycle right now. cycling my creatures. Dark Ritual is decent. Just more mana is always good for this deck. Cycling, find a horror, cycle, cycle again. There's a reaping. So they're super dead here because we can just reaping everything back. Find another stinger, so there we go. Cast the other stinger, and then we'll cycle. They go to 7. We can cast another stinger, and it doesn't really matter because our opponent concedes. So now we are 3-0. Round 4 versus True Below. We're on the play. We have a hand that has land, cycle, cycle. Decide to keep it. Our opponent mulligans to 6, and then 5. Play Great Furnace and pass. Our opponent plays Mountain Pass. I cycle the Vantasaur. Finding a land is really good. So we'll just go land and pass the turn. Opponent goes Rakdos Carnarium. So I'm thinking maybe it's Black-Red Madness or Goblin combo. They pass. We can just cycle the healer. Cycle the horror. And we have 3 creatures in the graveyard. Tons of mana. We could try to win right now. Finding a Grim Search. I cycle. Play a land. There's really no reason to just go for it, I guess. We'll pass the turn. Opponent plays a land. And now they play a Goblin Matron, so we know that they're on Goblin combo. They reveal a Skirk Prospector. So now I feel pressured to try to go for it, not let them have another turn. Finding a Stinger is really good because that allows us to now just go after it, putting the 5 in the graveyard, which is something I learned before. Okay, we find a Vantasaur, so that's 6 creatures in the graveyard. We have tons of mana. Cycle of Horror, Dark Ritual. This should just be easy peasy. We're going to bargain away our land and try to put more creatures in the graveyard. We find this is one of like the good use cases. Here's a bunch of stuff we don't need. We can take Petal, Songs, or just Songs for extra mana. Don't really need the Petal at this point, so I just take the Songs. We draw Dark Ritual too. So Dark Ritual, Deadly Dispute the land, finding a Vantasaur and a Petal. Play the Petal, play the Songs, cycle some more. Cycle a Street Wraith, finding a Great Furnace, which we can just tap for mana. Songs. We have 9 creatures in the graveyard. One of them is a Stinger. Just Songs again, and then start winning, or just reaping right here. So I have plenty of mana. I'm bringing everything back, playing out the Stinger, and then we'll start cycling. Killing them, cycle, cycle, cycle. We're cycling away, play a Cabal Ritual. Finding a Deadly Dispute's good, we can just Deadly Dispute the land. Now we found a second Stinger, so just play out the Stinger, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Another 12 damage just in hand. Cycle. We can play another Stinger, and then very easily kill our opponent here. Cycle. Cycle. We only need 3 more cycles, and we have 4 in hand. So we're just cycling away, and they're dead. Let's go to the next game. So this is a race matchup. I figured I want to cut the Ploy and the Carabid for 2 Fairy Macabres just to interact with them. I'm not expecting them to bring in anti-graveyard stuff from artifacts. Opponent plays first. We have a pretty good hand. And let's see what they do. We're keeping. They go Swamp Pass. We'll go Swamp, pass the turn. Let's see what our opponent does. Plays a Mountain. They play a Putrid Goblin. That scares me a lot because it means that they might have a turn 3 win. So I decide to go Dark Ritual and cycle 3 times. Cycle. Because we need to just start moving. Cycle again. And cycle a healer. So we find a Lotus Petal. 4 cards in the graveyard. Petal would put 5 in the graveyard. So I go Lotus Petal. I'm just trying to see if I can get it done. We can cycle the Vantasaur. That puts 5 in the graveyard. Find an extra Songs. So now I think we probably can get there. We can Songs of the Damned, crack the Petal, Cabal Ritual, Dispute a couple of times. We're just going after it. This is turn 2. Songs of the Damned. Cabal Ritual. We're going to Deadly Dispute the land. Finding another land. We can play the land, tap it. Play Cabal Ritual. If I find a Reaping, we're good. I Deadly Dispute the land. There's the Reaping. Now I'm going to Deadly Dispute a treasure token looking for more creatures. We cycle a Street Wraith. Now we have 5 in the graveyard. It's a bit sketchy still. Does not look free and clear yet. We're going to Reaping, since we have extra mana, and target the Street Wraith as the first thing to bring back. We're cycle the Street Wraith. Finding a Baron Moor is not great. Cycle a Vantasaur. Finding another Street Wraith is really good. We cycle it. Fairy Macabre. So I could discard the Fairy Macabre right now to put more creatures in the graveyard. I don't. I pick up the Healer. Recycle the Healer. I'm going to cast Songs of the Damned. We have 6 mana right now. Cycle the Healer. Finding a Deadly Dispute. So we're pretty much out of action. We're super deep and all in right now. Cycle a Healer. We find exactly Songs of the Damned. Sick. We cycle. We're finding a Street Wraith. I really should have discarded the Fairy Macabre here for extra value. Cycle another Street Wraith. So now we have, let's see, 7 creatures in the graveyard. We have 8 mana. Play a Lotus Petal. Deadly Dispute the Lotus Petal. Finding 2 more creatures. Cycle, cycle. I need to find mana or an Elementalist to try to get back my songs. We cycle the Horror. Cycle a Horror. Cycle a Stinger. I just go for Reaping. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 Street Wraiths in the graveyard, so I can actually draw 4 cards for 0 mana. All right, let's see how it goes. Street Wraith in hand. Cycle. Find a Dark Ritual. Perfect. Well, not perfect, but pretty good. Cycle. Find a Horror. I'm going to continue on my 0 mana cycling. Cycle that other Street Wraith. That's the 3rd one. Finding a Dark Ritual is good. Okay, I'm cycling a creature from hand. Cycle another one. Cycle another one. Finding Songs of the Damned, baby. There it is. Woo! Heart of the cards. Play the songs. Really should have discarded the Fairy Macabre. Everything comes back. Then I'm going to go ahead and play out my Stingers and try to kill our opponent. Stinger, Stinger, Stinger. And our opponent concedes. We win on turn 2. Sick. All right, round 5. We're 4-0. We are on the play. So this hand has Lotus Petal, Dark Ritual, Cycle, Cycle, Cycle again. But I honestly think that it was a mistake the other time, so we're going to mulligan. We take a 6, and we've got Cycle, 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 Songs, Petal, Furnace. I think this is a fine keep, and we can just get rid of one of the black cyclers. So we'll put the Horror on the bottom. Our opponent mulligans to 6 as well. We lead on the Great Furnace and pass the turn. And we get to see what they're up to. Being 4-0, we're just looking for a good matchup. They play Island, so generally that's pretty good for us. We're just gonna like take our time and try not to do anything too crazy. We cycle the Stinger. Our opponent responds with a Cycling Lorien revealed for Volatile Fjord. And we know we're up against probably blue-red control of some sort. So my turn, we haven't drawn a second land yet, so we want to start cycling to try to draw it so we can just make a land drop. Start with the Street Wraith, finding a Dark Ritual. Can cycle the Stinger. I missed on lands, but can't really afford to just burn the Dark Ritual for the Horror right now. We're going to play out the Petal in case they have a counterspell for the Petal, and then just pass a turn. So our opponent's turn, they Brainstorm, and then they play Volatile Fjord. My turn, we find a Great Furnace. We have 3 creatures in the graveyard right now. So I'm thinking I want a Dark Ritual into Cycle the Horror and see what I find. But okay, we're passing. Our opponent's turn. They cast the Modern Age. So I guess I was just trying to be a little bit patient. They discard a Lightning Bolt. And they don't find a land. So we're like, okay, maybe this is an opportunity here. We cycle a Street Wraith. So we have 2 0 mana cyclers. Finding another Street Wraith. Cycle that. Find a Grim Search. Here we have 5 creatures in the graveyard, plus 1 in hand, and Songs, Reaping, Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, so I think this is definitely the time to go for it. Turn 4, we're going to Dark Ritual, tap all of our mana, and then cycle the Horror. We find another Songs. We have 8 creatures in the, or 8 cards in the graveyard, so Cabal Ritual is online for Threshold. We play the Cabal Ritual, then we're going to Grim Search here. I'll just use my red mana and bargain away a land. Find Ardent Elementalist, Dark Ritual, Stinger, and Grim Search. We have a lot of mana already, but I would like these cards. Let's see what we take. Ardent Elementalist and the Grim Search. I think that makes sense. We're just going to get as much value as possible. Then we can Grim Search this land if we want. We have not made a land drop yet. So we can later make a land drop for a Deadly Dispute. And we find 2 creatures and 2 lands. So this is kind of sick because we can actually just bin the healers here. And now the Songs of the Damned tap for 9. We drew a Baronmoor, which isn't amazing. We're going to play the Songs of the Damned. Storm is currently 5. Cycle. We don't find a land or anything to do with our Deadly Disputes. So we can just put Songs of the Damned on the stack and then respond with Reaping. So we hold control, cast Songs of the Damned. We have 7 mana floating. We're going to get back 7 creatures this way. And then we'll target the Stinger and then put the rest on the stack, targeting all the Street Wraiths first. So Street Wraith comes to hand, we cycle it. Vantasaur. I'm just going to do some 0 mana cycling first. I draw a Dark Ritual, so now I can afford to cycle the Vantasaur. Finding a Cabal Ritual, cast the Cabal Ritual. We have 8 mana. Cycle a Street Wraith, we're at 4 life. Dark Ritual. We have to be a little concerned about cycling our Street Wraiths here. We cycle a Stinger. Another Stinger in hand. So we're making a bunch of mana here with the Songs on the stack already. We cycle, finding another Songs, and a Lotus Petal here. Pick up the Horror, cycle it. We can pick up the Stinger, we cycle the Stinger. So now our Songs of the Damned, instead of resolving for 7, is going to resolve for 10. We get 10 mana. Now we can Lotus Petal and play the Ardent Elementalist. So I think the safe play is to get back the Reaping here. So we're targeting the Reaping with the Elementalist. We pick it up. Now we can Deadly Dispute the Elementalist, adding more creatures into the graveyard and more Storm count. We cycle a Vantasaur, cycle another Vantasaur. We can cycle the Baronmoor, cycle a Healer. We're just going super deep into the deck. Cycle a Carabid here. Okay, cycle a Healer. And then we've got another Carabid to cycle. Okay, a Stinger. Storm count's 13. Find a Vault of Whispers, so we can play that, tap it for mana, and then Deadly Dispute it. So now we have more red mana available. And we have just all the mana in the world at this point, so we can just go off. Cabal Ritual, Songs, play the Lotus Petal. We can even Deadly Dispute the Lotus Petal here. And then we have 3 red mana. We have so many Reaping the Graves. Just get back all of our creatures, cast the Stingers, and then cycle our opponent to death. One thing to consider is that we can't use the Street Wraiths right now, but because we can cast 3 or 4 Stingers, it's not really a problem. If we draw into more colored sources, we can also find our... Let's cast Stinger, 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 and start cycling. Cycle. We can find our Dahada's Ploy, gain some life, and then use the Street Wraiths. But we have tons and tons of mana, so it shouldn't be a problem at all. Cycling away. So our opponent got to make 2 land drops, play the Modern Age, and lose. That stinks for them for sure. They go to 5 life, we're cycling some more, and then we cycle and win with even more pings on the stack. Let's go to game 2. So here I brought in 4 of the Pyroblast. I removed a Cabal Ritual, Ploy, and 2 Carabids. Pyroblast is just a good way to beat blue decks. Was not necessarily expecting any Gorilla Shamans, but we kind of have to just hope that we don't get got by that. So our hand is not keepable. We're going to mulligan this one. This hand is super close. We can Dark Ritual, cycle again. Maybe put back the Cabal Ritual. So that's what I decided to do. If we whiff on lands, we're kind of hosed. Now they play an Ice Tunnel, so they appear to be some sort of Grixis control. Find a Pyroblast. I'll cycle the Street Wraith, looking for lands. Lotus Petal. We're going to Dark Ritual here. Cycle again. Finding a Street Wraith, but no lands. Now the Vault of Whispers. All right. I'll play the Lotus Petal, so I'll have Pyroblast online and pass the turn. Opponent's turn 2. Plays a land, plays Brainstorm, and they pass the turn. We find a Baronmoor, which is great. We can pass the turn. They cycle a Lorien Revealed for a Volatile Fjord, so that's their blue-red land. They appear to be Grixis. I think I said that before. They're holding up Counterspell. We find a Songs of the Damned, which doesn't do very much. We need cyclers and stuff. Kind of just chilling on this Pyroblast. They Brainstorm, plays a land. Find a Cabal Ritual, which also doesn't do very much. I'm a little bit nervous about a Monarch from our opponent. They cast into fire my land, so I'm going to respond with casting Grim Search, sacrificing the land. It probably was a I'm not sure if this was the correct play. I could have gone Cabal Ritual and then Grim Search the land. That way I wouldn't have lost my Lotus Petal. So here we have Deadly Dispute, Lotus Petal. We don't really need the Deadly Dispute right now. I decided to not take anything. And we find a land and a Dark Ritual. I think that not burning the Cabal Ritual there was the mistake. Plays a Swamp. They play a Tolarian Terror. So here I could have tried to Pyroblast that. We have land, Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, Songs. I feel like at this point, I should try to go for it. We're really just missing the Reaping the Graves. So we're going to try to bait them. Play a Songs of the Damned. I'm hoping that they'll use a counterspell, because then I can Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, Deadly Dispute, and then use the Pyroblast from the treasure token to counter the counter. Dark Ritual. We use the Cabal Ritual. We have 6 mana. We can Deadly Dispute the Vault of Whispers. Finding Dark Ritual and Stinger. We're going to cycle the Stinger. Just digging, trying to find a Reaping. Street Wraith cycle. Mantisaur cycle. We find a Lotus Petal, so now we have fizzled, basically. We have the Lotus Petal, so we can go Dark Ritual, Pyroblast, Elementalist, get back Deadly Dispute, Deadly Dispute the Elementalist, and try to find the Reaping there. So Dark Ritual, Pyroblast. We're super all in at this point. We have 12 mana. We can Lotus Petal, Elementalist, grabbing the Deadly Dispute. We can't get the Rowan's Grim Search because Grim Search has to bargain an artifact, enchantment, or token, and Deadly Dispute can sacrifice the Elementalist. So we go for it, Deadly Dispute. We find a Stinger and a Songs. So we can win here if we find the Reaping, but we fizzle, and we lose. So I end up conceding at this point, I believe, and our opponent wins the game. Game 3 for all the marbles, trying to find that 5-0. This hand is very stable, so I'm going to keep it. Our opponent goes to 6, now 5, now 4. So things are looking pretty good for us. They keep on 4, we play Barrenmoor and pass the turn. They play a Volatile Fjord and pass the turn. I'll play my Barrenmoor and pass the turn. They play a land, 4 cards in hand. They're going to Modern Age. They discard a Deep Analysis, which can help dig them out, and we're going to cycle a Drannith Healer. Now it's my turn. We're going to start. So I'm considering whether or not I should cycle this Horror. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 mana right now. So I'm pretty close to just hard casting the Horror. And as a Skred deck, I don't think that they're going to have very many ways to get after my creature. So we're going to cycle again, looking for lands. Find another Barrenmoor, which is fine. We'll pass the turn. All right, our opponent's going to draw and discard. They discard a Lorien Revealed. So they must have a lot of lands. Or they wanted to do something. Now they're brainstorming here. So I noticed now that they don't have blue up for a possible counterspell, and I'm not putting them on Lose Focus. They have 3 cards in hand. So I think this is the right moment to go Dark Ritual Horror and then hold up like Songs and stuff for trying to just cycle and attack them for lethal with the Horror. It's not something I usually do, but I feel like this is the right moment for it. I mean, we had a good hand. We could maybe keep moving, but let's see if this will get the job done. They have a Vector Glider now. They play a Seething Landscape, so 4 cards in hand. They are now going to flashback the Deep Analysis. 5 cards in hand. Okay, we have Cabal Ritual and Songs of the Damned and Rowan's Grim Search. So let's see. We're going to Deadly Dispute the Lotus Petal and see if they respond. Looking for Cyclers. They have a Dispel. Kind of a problem for me for sure, because now I don't have any way to keep my creature alive if they go land Skred. They're at 13. They just decline to block. They play a Modern Age. They discard a Cast into the Fire. So they definitely were overprepared for my artifact lands, which is another reason why I'm playing all these Barrenmoors. Play my Lotus Petal. We're going to attack. Opponent does not block again. They go to 9. So they showed us Dispel. I'm not sure if I want to Grim Search here or not. I'm going to pass. Theoretically, if I Grim Search right now, they go for a Consider, and now they don't have Dispel up, so I'm going to go ahead and bargain away the Lotus Petal, finding 2 Street Wraiths, which is great because now I can put more power into this horror. Our opponent is going to mill a Hydroblast with their Consider. Now they're looting with their Modern Age. Discards a Snow-Covered Island. Plays a Tolarian Terror. Gets in for 2. Okay. So we're going to go to 16. Effectively 12 with the 2 Street Wraiths that are in hand. Our opponent still has 3 cards in hand. And they had discarded a Snow-Covered Island. We find a Stinger. So we can like play the Stinger and attack and then cycle. And then that's 1/2 plus the damage from this. Let's see what we choose. We're just going to go to attack phase. Try not to get like got by counterspell and just force them to do stuff this way. They block with the Terror. I'm going to cycle for 0 mana. I was a little bit afraid of Scred 1, 2, 3, 4, so we cycled first. I mean, if they block and then take it eats the Terror, then it's going to die to a Scred or anything. Finding a Pyroblast. Cycle again. So this kills their Terror. Terror down. I decided to cycle the Stinger and see how deep I can get into the deck and find more lands maybe. Another Stinger. So now we have 6 creatures in the graveyard. We've got the Cabal Ritual. If we find a Reap in the Graves, we can try to win. Our opponent plays another Modern Age. They're going to loot. They discard a Mountain. Plays a land. Maybe they're flooded. They're putting us to 10 here. It's definitely tight. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it for sure. So we're kind of like putting them on blocks. I go for Pyroblast on the Vector Glider to see if they will respond. That clears the way for our attacks potentially. They go Counterspell. 1 card in hand. So hopefully they have nothing. We're going to cycle the Vandasaur looking for lands. Find a Deadly Dispute. I cycle. Find a Reap in the Graves. So now here, if they have nothing, we can go for the kill, basically. We're going to attack for 8, see what they do. They're going to block. Their Vector Glider's dead. So now we're going to test the waters. Are we just going to pass? Okay. Fair enough. They're looting again. I guess I was afraid. So I guess on my turn, I can Cabal Ritual first and then see what happens. Because if they counterspell, I can then Deadly Dispute the Horror. They play an Azure Fleet Admiral, so I feel like with all their mana available, plus the extra draw, this is my last turn to get there. They're going to attack us down. Nope, they pass the turn. They draw for their Monarch. So we're going to go for Cabal Ritual first. That resolves. Let's try Songs of the Damned. Resolves. So it sort of comes down to whether or not the Deadly Dispute's going to resolve here. We Deadly Dispute. Resolves. They apparently have nothing. Play the land. Tap it. Deadly Dispute the other land. And then now we have Pyroblast, as well as our Elementalist. So we're going to pay the mana for the Elementalist. Try to get back the songs. Grab the Songs of the Damned. Cast it. Or cycle, sorry. Cycle the Vantasaur. Cycle the Street Wraith. Cycle a Vantasaur. Dark Ritual. Songs of the Damned. Songs of the Damned again. We have 28 mana. Cast the Reaping. We're going to get back all our creatures. Everything comes back. I think if we, let's see, we've used 1, 2 Deadly Disputes, 3. So we should probably be able to just slam the Stinger and go for it. They don't seem like they have anything. It's unlikely for them to just chill on it. We only have to deal them 9 damage. Alright, everything's reaping back. Make a red. Here's the moment of truth, and they have nothing. So now we just cycle away. We have to pay attention to not dying to potentially like a lightning bolt. So cycle, cycle. We're gonna get there. Cycle again. We cycle. Another Pyroblast. We draw Barrenmore. We cycled that. We cycle, cycle, cycle. And they're dead. We got the 5-0. The deck is sweet. So that is it for me for this Pauper League. If you liked it, let me know. Let me know what you thought about the video. I think that sometimes when you have a really sick league, it's okay to do the replays. I love doing the live videos as well. So let me know in the comments what you thought. Hopefully, if you enjoy Cycle Storm, this could inspire you to pick it up and get after it. And we will see you in the next video.